every day and doing what we do. I expect for the community to, again, do what we do, which is come together and take care of each other. Even when you look at, May 14th, people were taking food out of their refrigerators to make sure that their neighbors could eat. But I expect us to, the people who are governing our communities, the people who are getting paid out of our tax dollars, the people who we hired and put in their roles, to remember who they work for.
So let's dig into that for a second, because I think that's really important. And Fred, I know in particular you and I were on a panel recently discussing accountability when it comes to those elected leaders. And I asked you to name names, and I'm going to ask you to do the same thing tonight. Who in particular are we looking at?
I think that we have to Jillian's point, when we look at where our taxpayer dollars go in this community, who are we funding? We start at City Hall. We look at the folks that we send to Albany, the folks that we send to Washington, D.C. to fight on our behalf. If we're paying you to go and fight on our behalf, you have to bring our issues. And typically our issues are listened to around election time when we're trying to turn out the vote in certain communities. But when we look at what has happened, specifically in 14208, 14214 and 15, these are intentional public policy decisions to have concentrations of black folks that live in one particular community because of redlining. Like, we could have had elected officials decades ago intervene in a real way and say, we're going to do business differently here in the city of Buffalo, where we're not going to cater to developers. We're not going to cater to the wealthy in this community. And we're going to start from the bottom up.
Mark, I'm going to ask you the same question. Could you name names? Because the mayor today, or the mayor earlier this week, had said it is impossible to see major changes before construction season even starts. When we asked him about what he could point to as transformative change over in the Jefferson Avenue community, he says, think about timing of how things work.
Oh, I could definitely name names. That's been my job over the past year. We can talk about the companies or the organizations, whoever made these Choose Love, Stop Hate, and Racism shirts. You're telling a marginalized community with the largest concentration of black people to stop hate and racism.
That's the Bills.
I didn't know it was the Bills. Ain't that funny? So you're asking this organization who made these shirts for this community to wear, when those shirts shouldn't be made for this community. That community didn't even ask for that stupid motto at that. You had a racist man coming from out of Buffalo, coming here and scouting. And he was easily able to scout, unfortunately, the poorest city, the largest concentration of black people, the worst socioeconomic status neighborhood. And unfortunately, still a year later, those facts are still true.
So tell me why you think it's stupid. Dig in here.
All right, do you think the money made from those t-shirts are being recycled in the community?
They would say 100% would go back into the community, but you haven't seen that, is what you're saying.
Absolutely not. I mean, why should I believe that the Buffalo Bills are doing anything that they're saying?
Talk to me about the elected officials, too, in terms of who's inside City Hall, inside Albany, inside Washington, D.C., who you think has perpetuated or continues to allow something like this to happen.
I say all of Congress. I mean, for some reason, Congress has an infatuated stance on wanting to control women's rights, on wanting to control gay people's rights, on wanting to profit from the NRA. And it seems like no one cares in the history of the country. I mean, it was only until 1965 in which they said African Americans were equal to white people. And I'm pretty sure you can ask any black person right now in America, do you feel equal, to your Caucasian counterpart?
The mayor said that education is the great equalizer. What do we think of the education system in the city of Buffalo, though?
I mean, underfunded, which is what you think about most things in the city of Buffalo, aside from maybe the police. There's a saying like, show me your budget and I'll tell you your priorities. And when we look at how we look at money being taken out of workforce development to go to add money to policing. It's like, we don't need to just be policed. Like, we need resources. Even thinking about last summer, when it was time for the redistricting, you know, so many community members, they had an open forum. The Common Council had an open forum, and every single community member that spoke up said, we do not think this map accurately puts us all in a position to be equally represented. And that exact map is still the map that they ended up passing. So it's like, you can't just let your people feel unheard. And then to the people, we can't get used to being unheard. Like, we can't just normalize the fact that nobody's gonna listen to us anyway.
So who in government would you like to listen?
I mean, we could start local. We could start with the Common Council. You're our legislators. We could start with the mayor. Like, listen to us. Don't listen to us for the sake of, oh, I'm gonna make you feel heard. So I'm gonna have a community forum and I'm gonna let everybody who wants to talk speak for 3 minutes, and then we're gonna move on to the next person. When we say Allentown shouldn't be in Fillmore District, don't put Allentown in Fillmore District. Like, actually listen to the people who are living in the Buffalo that you are creating.
So do you think the mayor is capable of leading the city post May 14th?
I think anybody who has the right heart is capable of leading.
Yes.
I just think that sometimes, and I don't think this just falls on the mayor of a city, right? I think sometimes when you're in charge of anything, you have so many moving parts that you gotta focus on all of them. So I think there are times where leaders in general, and like I do this in my own business, where there's something that I know I need to kind of focus on, but there's 100 other things that I know I need to focus on. So that one thing sometimes might not get the focus that it needs. A lot of the community feels like that one thing that's not getting the focus that they need.
Could I jump in here, Ed?
Please.
The thing about politics is, a lot of us understand that politicians have two jobs. One, get elected. Two, stay elected. You know, and in this country, Black people as a voting bloc, we're always courted as a voting bloc because we are the conscience. Black people are the conscience of America. So the Black vote is always courted as a bloc because conscionable white people are looking to the Black voting bloc for where they should be morally. So politicians take advantage of that. Then once they take advantage of that, to stay elected, they're beholden to the Black voting bloc to get elected. They're beholden to white money to stay elected.
And Fran, I know that that's one of the points that you often make, that there is a system that perpetuates that issue.
So just to kind of clarify things on my perspective, we're talking about two different strategies. Do I hold any elected official accountable for some killer driving hundreds of miles to shoot up our supermarket? No, I don't. There's two different crises that are happening in our community. There is a crisis with young white men in this country. There's a problem with gun legislation and gun reform and getting guns off the street in this country. That crisis has to be handled.
And we could do it if we wanted to.
And we could.
If we
and we
wanted
could.
to.
But that crisis, and I hold other white people accountable for having those conversations within barbershops, within family dinners, within churches and other institutions to organize in white communities. The second crisis is what happened on May 13th and May 12th and May 11th. So specifically two different things. And again, what is going on the east side of Buffalo did not just happen by mistake, right? And some of it is intentional disinvestment, but then priorities. Which area, to have a booming Canal Side, and you know the thought, we know that trickle down economics don't work for our people, right? So like we can't keep using the same strategies in hopes of lifting up those that are hurting. So there are two different strategies, and I look to our elected officials, I look to the leaders of our nonprofit organizations, and also our corporations. How are we strategically coming together to create a strategy? Don't just do one development project over here or drop a supermarket and mini mart over here. Like, we need a robust, holistic strategy to revitalize the entire east side of Buffalo.
And the revitalization of the east side needs to be seen as a part of the revitalization of the entire city.
We're going to go a little bit
sure.
more in depth on that same issue of investment coming up on the other side of this break. You're watching 514, 1 year later, a Buffalo Strong conversation. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us for this really important conversation as we approach the 1 year mark since that awful Tops mass murder here on Jefferson Avenue, a block away from where we are inside the Merriweather Library. I'm here with a really distinguished and educated panel, and I want to thank you all again for being with us. Last night, the family members that we spoke with said there is an awakening right now in our community. They met both the Black community, but also extended out to Western New York. But the awakening comes in the form of change. So who can we point to? And friend, you kind of alluded to it before the break, as the agents of change.
I think we have to dismantle that narrative that we look to other people to come and save us. We need the skills, network, capacities to save ourselves. No one's going to come and save us. Mm-hmm. And when we think about even how we feed ourselves, there was so much attention around food access that we lost sight of the issue, which was white supremacy and white nationalism,
right,
and violence and murder. So like, how do we pivot back? We know what's important in our community. So like, as a community, like, how do we come together, collaborate, and develop that collective agenda with the things that are actually important to us, and maybe not always look to outside. Let's look internal. How can we be our own change?
So, Fred,
if I could.
Let me just follow up really quick
Yeah.
on a point, Franchelle, because I want to make sure that we're very clear here. When you talk about almost going backward and talking about how we got here, is that a priority, or for you and your organization especially, is it about also moving forward and finding the ways to rid this desert, this food desert that we have here in the Black community on East Buffalo? Is it about investment? How do we move that forward as well?
How do we move forward together? One, we have to understand the history and how we got here.
Right.
We have to understand the history of race in America. We also have to understand the history of race here in Buffalo, in Western New York. We have to understand our industrial roots and how disinvestment happened, how job loss happened, how 12 times more youth and babies in our community will suffer from lead poisoning because of that industrial past. So there's things that we have to, when we talk about moving forward together in a collective agenda, in a collective way, we have to talk about the history as step one. At Open Buffalo, we train emerging leaders, change agents in the community. You don't have to work for a social justice organization to fight for justice. You fight for justice at your dinner room table. You fight for justice when you're in line at Tim Hortons or you're tailgating. These are all opportunities that everyday people can engage in change making, and that's what Open Buffalo seeks to do. That's our role, to cultivate a massive amount of change agents in our community that can help fight for a collective agenda.
And Ed, why it's important to understand the history is because I mentioned before the idea of Adam Smith economics, where that laissez-faire idea where
The hands-off economy.
The hands-off, where there's money, the economy will simply grow. It's important to understand the history of, like I said, how black people were kept out of were intentionally kept out of opportunities, and how that created the overvaluation of East Aurora and West Seneca compared to what we have over here. Because white people who aren't from here say, well, like I said, from an Adam Smith laissez-faire idea, it's not appropriate to take government money and government incentives to put it in that side of this town. But you've got to understand that it was government money and government incentives that created this.
Sure.
I mean, it was perfectly legal to not hire these people or that people, or they had to sue the fire department and the police department to force them to hire black people.
Jillian.
Yeah, in the spirit of really taking an honest look at where we were and where we want to go, even down to how we talk about our community. Like, the east side of Buffalo is not a food desert. It's apartheid, because one is natural and one is intentional. And when we're talking about being intentional about the solutions, we have to be honest about the problem. And creating or ending a food apartheid, that's a systemic issue. Ending a food desert is as simple as putting a grocery store somewhere. So I think even down to how we talk about the issues that people on the east side are facing, like, we have to make sure that we're being real about what it is so that we can have real solutions.
We also talk about the lack of intersectionality between communities, and we're talking about the suburbs, we're talking about the north towns, the south towns, east and west. How do we bring people together and say, walk a mile in my shoes, so that they understand what it's actually like?
People need to care. Ed, that is the bottom line. People need to care. We are so used to white people, if there's 10, white people have 7, and the black community has 3. And we're so used to that as the norm. But when we start talking about, okay, maybe you have 6, so we can have 4. The white community is like, okay, I'm all for equality and all that, as long as none of it comes out of, as long as my life doesn't change in any way. And people need to care, and everybody needs to be willing to see a change in their lives somewhere.
Dr. B.
I agree with the panel. People need to care. And as an educator purely, I can tell you that people need to be taught how to care. And again, the core concept of the devaluation of black life, how we view where black people come from, how they got here, what happened to them since they've been here, is huge. So the mission of Open Buffalo is to advance racial, economic, and ecological justice. And on that note, my job, my role, my lane, and why Fran brought me from higher education, is to spread out an antidote to the poison of racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. The Race, Power, and Privilege anti-racism training that was conceived following the George Floyd protest all the way through to now, after 5/14. A position has been created, and we are doing transformational work with white agencies, black agencies, and everything in between, but primarily white agencies for now. Big shout out to Beyond Support Network, wonderful client. We're doing our second phase of training with them, and they're stepping up and they're saying, okay, I want to care, I want to know, I want to learn how to dismantle things. So I've been waiting, so I had to say this. When we're talking about dismantling white supremacy, think of what does the word dismantle? I got a poet next to me, wordsmith. Whether it's a fridge, whether it's a car engine, or a computer, you need to know how it works so that you can what? Have the right tool. Do I use a socket wrench? Do I use a screwdriver? Like, what do I use for that? So you have to understand the entire mechanism. Jillian says systemic. I have people saying systematic. We have to, it's not about fancy words. It's about understanding how sophisticated it is. Fran mentioned trickle-down economics doesn't work for the black community, right? Well, trickle-down bigotry sure has worked for white America. trickle up and trickle down racism has been infected into the system, where someone after K through 12 education and whatever they learned in there and with their families, this anti-racist training, the Race, Power, and Privilege program that we're running, there's a dirty F word. Watch out, Channel 7 viewers. Family. How your family teaches you to view them, they, those. It's come out. And so it's medicine. We're examining this infection, and we are providing a literal antidote, and we want to spread that out from community to community. You asked something that has been haunting me ever since I've been waiting for this talk today. Take a metaphor of black teen pregnancy, for example. And let's make a fictional, really, really white, rural country farm town. Let's call it West Kakalaka. Now, if we're trying to address the problem of black teen pregnancy, do we need to go out to West Kakalaka to address that? Or should it be done where that black teen pregnancy is the problem? Switch it. White supremacy. Is it among black folk who are the victims of these horrible crimes that we really need to do these trainings and rock the shirts and all? We need, as Malcolm X said, white people don't have to show that they're, I'm using hip hop vernacular now, that they're down with black people by being around them and performing their allyship. It has to be impactful, it has to be intentional, and yes, the education route is everything, because in my educational history, people go, oh man, I didn't know that. And then they go, damn, why didn't I know that?
Right.
And they get angry, and that's a good thing. Rage is strong love. I rage against injustice. So good people, and yes, good meaning white people, need to really get the tools of what it means to be an ally and go to organizations and start to do the work. I gotta throw it to Fran real quick. There's this magnificent white woman I just met yesterday, and she created a quilt. Fran, can you tell them about the quilt?
Beautiful. It's taller than me. I'm not a really tall person, but the quilt is taller than me. And she's been creating this quilt since May 15th.
What's the purpose?
The purpose, it has the faces of the victims on the quilt, and it has a pocket where folks can put letters to individuals on the quilt. And it's beautiful. It is a beautiful work of art. And the reason why I brought it up, besides it just being a beautiful piece of art, do something. Do something where you're at. If you're at home by yourself and you know how to quilt, then you quilt. If you're a social media manager and you can make really good memes, do that. You don't have to be an organizer that's mobilizing tens of thousands of people on the nation's capital. Just move. Do something where you are
So
right
is,
now.
Is this
Here, just to piggyback too off of
please.
what Dr. B said, you know, racism is a disease, but unfortunately, you know, America isn't ready yet to go to the hospital. You know, America's not ready to talk about corporate racism, educational racism, food racism. There's so much racism intertwined in American legislature and American government that America really doesn't know where to start at. When it comes to, you know, once again, for instance, you know, the terrorists that came here, they don't want to talk about how easy it was for him to purchase, you know, tactical care, semi-automatic rifle, make it illegally modified, drive here close to 2 hours, and easily walk in the parking lot. America isn't ready to discuss how that can happen, but how, once again, a black man could just be put in a chokehold by a non-police person, or how a black person can just go to the corner store, get a pack of Skittles and an American iced tea, and end up not making it home. Or how, once again, another black person can just go to the store, all of a sudden get taken down because he's deemed dangerous and have a knee put to the back of his neck. And unfortunately, once again, racism in America is as old as American as itself. The saying is what? American pie is as old as the country. That's racism. That has knocked baseball. It has knocked apple pie. Racism is the new American meritocracy.
Jillian, you're a poet laureate. You use words for a living. I'm interested, what would you tell someone in these predominantly white, perhaps rural communities, even suburban communities, white neighborhoods of the city of Buffalo? What would you tell them to make that first move and get them out of their comfort zone?
I would just say racism is your fight. Like, this is yours. You own this. If you are walking your dog and your dog goes to the bathroom on somebody's front lawn, that's your dog. You have to clean it up. I think, and so I'm the poet laureate, right? And everybody always wants me to say things in a way that sounds beautiful, and they want it to rhyme a little bit.
Keep it real.
And have some impact. But when we're talking about things like this, like, if we don't know anything now, we know that it's life or death for our community. So don't look for me, and I'm going to say this directly into the camera. Don't look for me to make you feel good about fighting racism. Don't look for me to put a poem together that will bring a tear to your eye and make you feel like tomorrow I'm going to be an agent for change. That's not what I exist for. I don't exist to make white people ready to address a problem that belongs to their own community. I'd say, I challenge you to do it. And if you don't do it, it just means you don't care. And if you don't care, okay, right? Okay, we can't make you, but just be honest.
Yes.
Let me know if you're an ally or not, and
So-
then let's fight.
Michelle Spite, oh, go ahead.
I just want to add to that. Going back to the concept around intersectionality, and when we talk about what's happening in our economy and the fact that we live within a very extractive economy, I know broke white folks, I know broke black folks, and the way the system takes and extracts from our people, that is the great equalizer. What's happened, it has double and triple the impact in black communities, but really trying to have open-ended conversations with people that don't look like you. And you have an interest in this too. Maybe it's hurting me more today, but it's coming for you.
Michelle Spite,
Amen.
last night, as part of the conversation with the family members, mentioned that she would rather have you be overt about it than covert. What do we feel about that?
At the end of the day, covert or overt, it lies in the options and opportunities for poor and black communities in particular. And I have the paradigm, as you know, options, opportunities, access, and awareness. What good is an option or an opportunity if you don't have an awareness to it? And good people, that white counselor in high school, I don't care, teacher or whatever, they are the actual umbilical cords of access that can show. Big shout out to Say Yes Buffalo. People trying to open up options and opportunities for kids, families, and communities to better themselves. But I want to stress, to not empower white communities. Having black dollars stay in Black Buffalo is important. Ms. Massey talked about vibrant black businesses where money stayed in the community. We need that again.
So I spoke, oh, please.
I was going to say, from a basic survival perspective, right? If there was a snake in here and it was a big white snake, we'd notice it. If the snake blended in with the carpet, it would be a lot harder to avoid getting bit by the snake because you don't notice it. So from a basic, like, what's easier to survive, to Michelle's point, that, like, if you're just openly racist, at least I know. Like, at least I can prepare for that. But I think when we enter spaces where it's very hidden and there's a lot of microaggressions and we're like surviving something that nobody else can really see, that makes it so much harder.
I want to push back on that though, because we've gotten to a place in American life where dropping racial slurs is a part of the everyday norm, that this hate speech is able to grow and manifest itself on social media in a way that elementary school kids are being infected with this. So I want it to go back underground. I don't want it to be popular again. The language, the hate speech, it's creating a movement of people that want to see other people dead.
That feel emboldened.
Yeah, I don't want it
Yeah.
to be popular,
But
but
I mean,
definitely.
it kind of
if
feels
I'm-
like it is becoming popular in 2023 to be an overt racist in our community. Let's put it back underground, and then we can figure out how to dismantle it underground.
I have to
know.
jump. I have to jump in there
don't
because
know.
my life as an educator is dedicated to helping everyone be able to recognize it, attack it, and dismantle it. So whether overt or covert, again, and we have to think again, if I may, we have to think again as a disease, as a pathology that grows. In my mind, when you're talking, Fran, connects that little elementary school kid saying the N-word and it evolving, dare I say devolving, and evolving into what the demon did to his mom. There's a direct line of your consciousness of how you, white supremacy is not just a demonic murderer driving to kill our elders, it's that CEO who refuses to even interview or even goes through the tokenistic, oh, see, I did one interview kind of thing. It's hiring practices, it's policing. And to touch on the thing about the mayor, and there's our mayor, who I like and I've met several times. What's up, Mayor Brown? Is very much as capable as any other mayor in any city to look at best practices of other major cities where they're able to look hardcore in the mirror at how racist organizations have infiltrated the police departments, about disproportionate sentencing and incarceration, all these practices. Marijuana, we had a big event this weekend about opening a new prison. Gee, I guess who they're going to try to throw into there and fill the prisons with.
So when it comes to systems, I spoke with the governor and I asked her to point to real transformative change in the last year since May 14th. And the three things that she mentioned in particular were the number of people involved and enrolled in job training, the number of houses that have had repairs done, and the number of small businesses that have support from the state. All on the east side, she's pointing to. Do we see that? Do we feel that? Do we agree?
I disagree with it. I mean, let's say, for instance, if the Tops terrorist attack, let's say if it didn't happen in Jefferson, let's say it happened at the Tops in Cheektowaga, or say if instead of Tops, let's say if Lexington Co-op on Elmwood, let's say if that happened, I believe we'll see a lot more change instantaneously compared to what's happening now.
And is that because it's a white community compared to a black community?
Absolutely. You know, being black in this country mean just sit and wait your turn. And as of right now, we're just still waiting, hoping that this legislation that she signed, it'll trickle down to us and something will happen. And regarding the amount of money that she donated to the east side of Buffalo to help with businesses, nonprofits, and organizations in that community, I mean, ironically, I just got turned down for it with the exact email stating, since I'm not located in that zip code, I'm not affecting change on Jefferson Avenue. So I don't think this money will necessarily go to all the businesses, corporations, and people that'll help. And regarding the home repairs, I mean, who cares about the home repairs if the individual can't afford that mortgage still? And unfortunately, with inflation going up, people's salary staying the same, if not decreasing, or people just getting fired left and right. Now you just have a new house with no homeowner, which would be, once again, that's the east side of Buffalo. You have a lot of vacant lots, a lot of vacant houses with nothing being done.
So the one thing the governor mentioned along with the mayor is that there has to be intentional use of this cash. What is intentional use at this point of this money in a post-514 world?
I would answer that by saying Dr. Henry Louis Taylor answered that 30 years ago. I mean, when we're really serious, you know, the first thing is we need to care and we need to really want to do this. And I'm finding that beyond the black community in Buffalo, white people don't. They don't. I'm finding that a lot of white people are using anti-racism as a way to clean themselves up and be better white people. But they're not going so far as, okay, now that I'm a better white person, how do I affect change in the black community? And that's what needs to happen.
I want to refocus here, and I want to, with the little time that we have left, find a way to say what is intentional use of this cash right now. Dr. B.
Okay. when you're looking for soldiers fighting on the front lines, I point to Open Buffalo. Go to openbuffalo.org and look at what the Emerging Leaders Program is about. Learning how to work with your money, learning how to advocate for your community so that you can build a business. Functionality. When we're talking about racial, economic, and ecological justice, what you and Mr. Taylor were just talking about was economic justice. We're not getting the loans to develop our neighborhoods. So being able to demonstrate that we qualify, whether it's zip code or whatever they want, right? Whatever hoops they want us to jump through, but that we are able and proficient in handling whatever resources we're given. You know what I mean? So Dr. Taylor was one of my professors, and I love me some Miss Massey, but I respectfully disagree. His answers were back then, but we cannot lose hope in acting on the future. I'm living it every single day. Open Buffalo is fighting that every single day. And when we listen to the concept, emerging leaders, teaching young people from 17 to 70, when I say young, no. Teaching huge cohorts of people how to literally improve their communities. And I pray and hope that it will spread out beyond. And I had some of my best friends are white. I want to be careful because we got good white people working in Open Buffalo.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that, just because a demon did what they did in 514, and there are a lot of demons in the government and, dare I say, in parts of the police system, there are good people out there. And you need to hear the call.
Yeah.
And you need to learn how to care
Yes.
and learn how to develop the tools to dismantle this. I personally believe you can and do care if your eyes are just open and your heart is. And I believe his book isn't an exploitative thing trying to hustle. It's turning his trauma into triumph and sharing the pain so maybe a human being can actually read his words and feel his heart and feel his pain as if it happened to them. Where's the do unto others-ness in this Christianized society?
Actually, I kind of want to push back on Dr. B.
Please.
There are definitely a lot of good white people. One of the first, well, not the first, but starting my organization, a good white person I met helped me get my first grant. My grant writer, she's white. A lot of people I'm meeting at these meetings, behind closed doors meeting, people that's helping me elevate, people that's helping me with my book. They're all white. But at the same time, I think being black in this country, you get tired of hearing there's good white people. Yeah. You just get tired. Who cares? You want those good white people to call out those bad white people.
Then we agree to agree.
And unfortunately, it's the black people that's having to constantly call out the bad white people.
Right.
But nobody listens to those black people.
They hear it better from each other, from
yes,
themselves.
yes,
If
yes.
that was a black Channel 7 anchor running this, I wonder if we had that much coverage. No offense, Ed.
Well, I'll tell you though, last night Taylor was hosting a similar panel.
Hi,
She
Taylor.
did a
Much love to
phenomenal
Taylor.
job. And the bottom line here is that it's up to all of us to affect
Yes.
change. And I think as a community, it's really important that we have these conversations. And I'm sure you all would agree that it's important to have these conversations, not just here, but also around the dinner table.
Yes.
And again, that all starts with you, and that starts at home. I want to thank you so much for being part of our conversation tonight inside the Meriwether Library. I'm Ed Dranch. Good night.
Let the hopeful healing waters flow, ushering in a rebirth of our sense of self. Let the water remind us of time, current yet fleeting like life itself, large yet within reach, just as the ancestors. Let the hopeful healing waters flow, cleansing all pain and fear, all hurt and regret. Let the water heal our people, reminding us that even our small marks on this huge world are necessary. Let the hopeful healing waters flow. Let the water tell the stories of those who came before us, those who fought and believed for us, those with the strength and power of a high tide, those with the meekness of a still pond. Let the beauty of the unknown offer comfort and hope, for within water, there will always be life.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Russo from 7 News. We're taking you through the 716 in 2 minutes. This weekend, we will mark 1 year since the deadly tragedy at Tops. We lost 10 of our friends and neighbors last May 14th, and today the families of 3 of those victims announcing a major lawsuit. They're looking to hold members of the gun and social media industries accountable. The lawsuit filed on behalf of the families of Andre McNeil, Catherine Massey, and Hayward Patterson. It names companies like Meta and Alphabet, the parent companies of Facebook and Google. Also named are Discord, Reddit, and Amazon.com, which operates Twitch, a body armor maker, gun store, and custom firearms manufacturers, also in that lawsuit.
That's all I want. I just want justice for my father. Like, I never imagined this. I never imagined my daughter not meeting my father. It's just a lot. I think about it every day.
Well, the lawsuit also names the gunman's parents. There are a number of events happening this weekend to honor the Jefferson 10. They'll also offer community members a chance to reflect on lessons learned over the last year. Roswell Park held a panel discussion titled Beyond Hate. It included the perspective of local and state leaders on that tragic day. There will also be a community gathering Saturday at noon at the Johnny B. Wiley Pavilion. All right, switching gears now. It's time to check into the forecast. Let's bring in meteorologist Mary Beth Rogel.
Well, Jeff, good evening. It is going to be a beautiful night here in Western New York. Temperatures sliding down through the 70s into the 60s, down into the 50s for overnight lows. We're going to keep it dry here. Also, if you're heading out to the Bison's game tonight, looking good. Temperatures in the 70s, dropping down into the mid 60s by the time you head home. Good for the Bandits if you're heading to and from as well. Right now, some clouds starting to stream in, but the weekend looks pretty good. We'll have partly sunny skies on Saturday. It's the warmer day of the two, a little cooler for Mother's Day.
Chantel Patton is getting ready for a massive family milestone. Her daughter Cadence's 8th grade graduation.
She's going to Sacred Heart for high school.
Nice.
3rd generation. Me, my mom, my godmother, and both my godsisters.
But every morning before school, they had a routine.
I would stand on my top porch, send my daughter to Tops, and watch her until she walked through the doors.
It was comfortable. Chantel knew the workers at the Jefferson Avenue Tops like extended family.
I walk in there, one of the managers, his name is Eddie. As soon as I walk in, he gives me a hug. Like, this is our store.
Then 1 year ago, a racially motivated attack killed 10 of our neighbors and closed that Tops down for 2 months.
This is something that happened less than 300 feet from my house. There was a constant reminder that what we refer to as our corner store was a crime scene.
A grocery store down the street turned into a food desert. And Chantel's walk,
Good morning, Kay.
became a bus ride.
It's not the end all for us, but we do need to make some adjustments. And they're not going to be the easiest adjustments to make because now we have to shift where we source our food from.
And those sources weren't easy to get to. The nearest grocery store to Tops was almost 2 miles away.
We need water and we need milk. Well, water's heavy, as is milk.
Yeah.
So can you carry a water and I carry a milk, or do we have to leave one at the store?
After 2 connecting bus rides, we arrived to the corner of Broadway and Fillmore Avenue, where Chantel would grocery shop at Aldi, over 2 miles away from home.
So from home to here, how long does it take?
We're talking what should normally be maybe a 10-15 minute drive, turning into an hour and 15-minute bus ride.
The food desert in East Buffalo has been a focal point of discussion for years. Now in 2023, 1 year after the shooting, Chantel says this goes far beyond food.
I don't even want to call it PTSD, because PTSD, the P would indicate that it is no longer happening. My community suffers from TSD, just traumatic stress disorder, because it's stressor after stressor after stressor after stressor.
Buffalo Mayor Byron Brown says plans are already in place for change.
In a few weeks, people will start to see work being done on Jefferson Avenue and in and around that neighborhood.
But Chantel says right now, progress feels like it's only inching forward when it needs to be miles worth.
Where do you see your community in those 3 to 5 years of a timeline?
I think it's just a moment where we don't have opposition to what we're asking for. We're asking for more options. We're asking for more resources. And to be able to ask for those things and not be met with opposition well, we can give you help, or we can give you help in exchange for. This is a community, these are neighborhoods, these are zip codes that have long gone forgotten. They go overlooked. And I think it's just time for the powers that be, who have the resources and the capital to invest in these areas, to do so.
James Catato, 7 News.
People are still devastated and they're still hungry.
Lenny Lane has a deep passion for his community. He grew up just 2 blocks from Jefferson Avenue, where the tragic massacre took place. He's also a retired Buffalo firefighter who spent 25 years working right down the street from Tops. So after the tragedy, he wanted to make sure he responded to his community needs.
Who else can save us but us? We have to save ourselves. I always tell my family that, we are the ones that's going to save us.
Lenny's mobile response effort begins right here at a Catholic Charities Center in South Buffalo, where he gets donated food to bring to the East Buffalo community.
The slide going to the back. People are still crying. We still haven't got over it yet. People still don't want to shop, at the Tops Market. Most of them come to the food pantry. They rather go or come to us on the street than actually go into Tops. So there's a great need within our community, and we just want to help fill that void.
Well, that's what we needed, and it really shows how our community can come together in a time of tragic incidents.
I caught up with Duriel Green, who was walking with his groceries from Tops. He lives nearby and is thankful for people like Lane.
Let's stay a family and continue to build our community, because our community really needs to get better.
Green says it is tough walking back into the Tops knowing what happened there, and he would like to see more community-owned shops on Jefferson. And that's why Lane continues to bring his support to this Jefferson Avenue corner.
1, 2, 3. Just kind of like loving on these families that lost so much, and they still struggling. A lot of people still are hurt.
Eileen Buckley, 7 News, Buffalo.
Even though Title 42 is now expired, there's still a lot of migrants at the southern border. Volunteers on the U.S. side have now started passing out water. The end of Title 42 means nearly all routes to asylum in the U.S. have been shut down, and people who bypass legal pathways will face tough consequences. New York City, which processes thousands of asylum seekers, is now preparing to build shelters for those stuck in limbo. More than 39,000 are in the care of the city right now, and the state is asking for federal assistance to maintain shelters. U.S. leaders plan to have a website in place soon to help guide people seeking